Good morning, church family. Just leaving the gym, heading back to the house. And before I eat breakfast and get ready for work for the day, I've been meditating on Proverbs 3. Proverbs 3 is probably somewhat familiar to most of you if you've read the Proverbs. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways and he will make straight your paths. And there's a lot in Proverbs 3, even beyond just Proverbs 3 and 5, 3, 5, and 6, chapters 3, 5, and 6, chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. And one thing I just want to note is just that first word, trust. Because throughout the rest of these Proverbs, in chapter 3 in particular, there's these clear just commands. Do not envy your neighbor, or do not contend with a man for no reason, or do not envy a man of violence, or honor the Lord with your wealth, or do not despise the Lord's discipline, or do not withhold good from those to whom it is due. There's all these admonitions of do and do nots, which are imperatives for us to take heed to. But in all these imperatives, there's typically some type of what the Proverbs typically do is they give you a reason, and they give the reason by establishing both a good consequence and a bad consequence for heeding or not heeding the command. But what I wanted just to give you a brief meditation on is that idea of trust. Because really at the end of the day, fearing the Lord, trusting the Lord, believing in the Lord, relying upon the Lord, all these different images are saying the same thing. And I just think we don't grasp exactly what that means in kind of real everyday life. And so with all that being said, I just want to give a brief illustration, and I may even hear it used in a sermon again. So, forgive me for using one twice. A few days ago, Titus and I went outside to play basketball, and we had the goal lowered pretty low, and he was shooting, and I said, "Hey, you want to dunk it?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I get him up there, and of course I tell him, just hold on to the ball. That's all you got to do. Hold on to the ball. And I'll pick him up, and then he kind of just throws the ball, and it bounces off the backboard. So we do it like 3 times, and finally it goes in. Well, we go inside, and I'm like, "Hey, tell mommy what you did." And he's like, "Well, I did a layup." And I'm like, "What else did you do, Titus?" And eventually I said, "Titus, you dunked it, man." Now the question we need to ask ourselves is, did Titus dunk the basketball? Well, the answer is yes. He was in the air, his hands held onto a ball, and that ball went into the hoop. So did my 5-year-old, who's, I don't even know how tall the little man is, but he's not really tall, put it that way. He dunked a basketball. But the question is how did he dunk that basketball? And if you were not there, you would either have to assume that all of a sudden Titus gained Michael Jordan-like ups and just somehow did what no 5-year-old has ever done and dunk a basketball on an 8-foot goal, or he's not telling the truth. We would say that's probably the 2 most logical things. Something outrageously crazy happened that no one's ever heard of, or he's not telling the truth. But there's also a third option, and you know what the answer is that his much taller dad picked him up so that he could dunk the basketball. And I think when we read Proverbs 3, in light of chapter 3, verses 5 and 6 on trusting in the Lord and do not lean on your own understanding, the emphasis here is not let go and let God, do nothing, close your eyes, hold your breath, and wish for the best. That's not what it's saying. Throughout Proverbs 3, there's a lot of commands. Let not steadfast love forsake you. Honor the Lord with your wealth. Fear God. Turn away from evil. Again, there's the admonition of desiring and obtaining wisdom. So there's all these different commands that do speak about our responsibility. But I think when we're meditating on that idea of trust, it's not that we have the ability or even the responsibility at the end of the day to dunk the basketball. It's just our job to hold the ball and to trust the one who's holding us up can give us the ability to accomplish that at least in our eyes, impossible task. So as you read the rest of those commands in Proverbs 3, and you go, okay, I can do this, it actually starts with, Lord, I'm holding the ball. In other words, I'm holding fast to your promise. You said if I trust you, you said if I rely upon you, you said if I speak to that person in this way, or do not speak to this person in that way, or I pray for this, or I prioritize this, or I use my wealth and money and resources in this way. The Proverbs are not promises of God, but they are general principles, they're axioms, they're things that are generally true in light of God's character, in light of all of Scripture, and in light of how He's formed the world to be, that we'll receive what God intends for us. So if we do things God's way, we're going to live the life that God intended us to live. So as you think about trust today, think about the image of me holding up Titus to dunk the basketball. Did he dunk it? Absolutely. Did he have help? Absolutely. And so I pray that today that we would all learn what that might look like in our life today as we trust in the Lord with all our heart, that we do not lean on our own understanding, but that we would acknowledge Him in all our ways, put Him first, rely upon Him, seek His wisdom, and He will make straight whatever paths we need to walk upon today. God bless.